Yep.
Okay, great. All right, welcome to MedHeads. I'm your moderator today, Stephanie Baum. I'm the digital health editor with Med City News, and I'm coming to you live from my apartment in Philadelphia. I'm joined this afternoon by my colleagues, Neil Vercel, our health technology reporter in Chicago. How you doing there, Neil?
Doing great. You forgot to mention that it's your brand new apartment.
That's right, I did. I
Congratulations
did.
on that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm still
Yeah.
getting used to it. It's the cleanest it'll ever be right now because it's just furniture. There's nothing in my bookshelf. Just got a couple pictures and the rug and everything. But yeah, I'll be doing some damage this weekend hopefully. And I'm also joined in San Diego by our life sciences reporter Megan Cashman. How you doing this afternoon, Megan?
I'm just hungry, actually.
Hungry?
I'm hungry, but I'm okay otherwise.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
So,
Okay.
Nicole, if you're watching this, Nicole, who's doing our tweeting today, order her a pizza, have it sent over there, please, or something. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Okay, cool. Well, it's as usual, it's been a frenetic week in our world of healthcare reporting. Neil, you were at the World Congress on mHealth and Telehealth World in Boston, and Meghna, you were covering. You did a few interviews this week with some interesting companies. Why don't you start us off? You spoke with a company, spin-out startup called Deep Genomics. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's a University of Toronto spin-out. It's led by this researcher named Brendan Frey, and he is using deep learning to try and understand the cellular processes from a computational perspective. You're going to have to forgive me. I am sort of a neophyte to artificial intelligence and computer modeling, things like that. I'm more the biotech person, but it's a really fascinating way to take an in silico approach to drug development and to understanding disease. So this company basically is creating a Google searchable type engine to understand genomic mutations. So the idea is that when you sequence somebody's DNA, you'll find out what different variables they'll have in their DNA, like what different mutations they carry versus the next human being. And so this company says that you can type in X number of mutations, and then the search engine will spin out something that'll say this person is likely to get this disease. This person, these different mutations will make somebody have a more severe form of the disease. Like right now, somebody might carry a BRCA gene, but we don't really know if they're going to have breast cancer, even if they carry the gene. And so the idea with this company is that this database will be a much more fine-tuned way of learning what different mutations will actually lead to a disease, because people carry so many different ones. So Deep Genomics is it's a fascinating company. I could actually ramble even further about this. Stephanie, you might have to interrupt me.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, but what do you? I mean, because it seems like this is a really interesting area. This is a huge area of interest for a lot of companies. Taking this big data and being able to crunch it down to be able to make conclusions about people's long-term healthcare prospects. What if anything they can do to prepare for the onset of a genetic condition later on in their lives. I mean, do you see what they're doing as markedly different to what other companies in this area are doing? Are they particularly interested in particular genetic conditions, or is it kind of all comers at this point?
Well, every company seems to say that what they're doing is wildly different from other companies,
Right.
and so this company said that as well. It does seem like it is fairly different, and they do seem to have some pretty robust technology. I don't think they're focusing on any particular disease right now, because what they're doing is modeling the way that cells will function. They model cellular function based on what somebody's DNA is. Because they'll sort of start at the basic level of what your genes are, and then they'll predict from there what kind of proteins will get produced by these genes and what RNA will form, and then they'll build it out, and then looking at all these different pieces, they'll say this is the disease that will happen. So it's kind of a bottom-up sort of approach to disease modeling. And it's kind of interesting because this morning I learned that Columbia University is doing it sort of in the opposite way. That's the way that I'm gathering it. There are some researchers who are doing similar computer modeling, but they're doing it from the sense of if we feed this drug into your system, how will your proteins react to said drug? So it's kind of...
Oh, I see. To see the effectiveness of different drugs.
Yeah, based on your individual body chemistry. So it's starting with the drug and then seeing what the body chemistry reaction will be. Whereas with deep genomics, they are figuring out your body chemistry, figuring out how specific, what your specific disease reaction will be, and then from there that'll inform people what kind of drugs could be useful. And so with deep genomics, they have a lot of partnerships in place with longevity companies. I think they're working with Human Longevity Inc., although he didn't exactly confirm that, but he kept on mentioning it. So I think he's working with Calico and which is Google Longevity.
That's right.
Yeah, and then also with Human Longevity, and apparently a lot of big pharma is interested in this too.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that in general a lot more credibility is being lent to these in silico approaches. As recently as JP Morgan, I was talking to some companies saying that in silico approaches are kind of bullshit and they're pie in the sky, they are not really going to be able to realistically mimic what's going on in, our super intricate bodies just through computer modeling. And now I think people very quickly are starting to realize that computer modeling is and artificial intelligence will be very, very powerful in making sense of all of this data that we've got.
Okay. So the in silico or computer modeling approach, does that lower the cost of processing this information and reaching these kind of conclusions with whether the calculating whether a person's going to contract a particular condition or not?
Yeah, that's absolutely the goal of any of these sequencing efforts, right? The idea of precision medicine is to, make sure that you're not going to get a therapy that doesn't make sense for you. And so there's that aspect of computer modeling. And then there's also the aspect of helping, speed up drug development, helping pick out drug candidates through, virtual modeling instead of just injecting a substance in a rat and figuring out whether a rat will die. They're trying to figure out more accurate ways of developing the right kinds of molecules before they start testing. And doing that will save a lot of the infrastructure costs, potentially down the road. So, and that's what another company I wrote about this week called Berg is sort of doing also. And they actually have stuff in the clinic right now.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so Berg is, the way that the CEO, Navin Narain, described it to me, is that they start out in the wet lab itself. They get tumor samples, and then they sequence them, and then they take that data and combine it with the population health data, not population health data, but the phenotypic data, who the person actually is, and they'll take all of this information, and then they'll throw it into a, artificial intelligence algorithm. See, I'm talking I know what I'm talking about right now. That involves...
You sound very convincing.
What's that?
I said you sound very convincing.
Yes, and then you use Bayesian algorithms, because I know what that is. It's very complicated.
Now I'm intrigued. Are you Bayesian algorithm?
You're going to have to Google that one, but they're called...
No,
I don't even know how to spell that.
Meganuts this afternoon.
How do you spell that? You don't have to do it.
Is that UBASIAN or
something? It's
UBAZIAN?
I have it in my notes. You can't quote me on the spelling on it. But they use this artificial intelligence platform to optimize what a drug candidate for said condition could be, and they apparently are able to find biomarkers by analyzing all these tumor samples and like this phenotypic data. And they're doing it with pancreatic cancer now, which is kind of cool because there are no biomarkers for pancreatic cancer. We don't really know what causes pancreatic cancers on a biological level. So so this Berg company is using artificial.
Oh, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, it's really very.
So would
cool.
you say
And
if you were going to do some sort of like a? Yeah, I'm sorry. What?
Oh, I'm just saying Berg is working with Harvard and with a pancreatic cancer research institute to try and push these, this information through, and that's how they're getting the patient samples with these really good collaborations. And I think that they're going to have some promising work ahead, and it's helping them develop, therapeutics as well. They've got a pretty robust pipeline, and they've got stuff in the clinic too for skin cancer, I think. Yeah, for skin cancer. Anyway.
So do you see these companies as competing directly with each other, or do you see sort of how they're using computer modeling in kind of like overlapping circles? I know there's a specific program with a diagram. Neil's gonna have to. What is it called? A Venn diagram?
Yeah, I think that a Venn diagram would be a
Venn diagram.
There's going to be some intersection, I think. But it seems like they're approaching, I think they're approaching this problem from very disparate sides. I think that there's so much potential and so much space in this whole, computing world in genomics that I don't think that they're going to be competitors. I think that there's a lot of room for very smart science to be developed, and I think there's a lot of potential for growth. I don't think that they're going to be butting heads. Maybe for business, just because companies are going to have to, like big pharma is going to have to pick which avenue they're going to invest in. Are they going to invest in like studying, how a drug will interact with the molecular mechanisms, or they were going to start from like the DNA basis and see how does a disease manifest itself? Like both of these are valuable things. It'll be interesting to see what the industry is interested in investing in first, but they're not, doing the same thing. I don't think. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds pretty exciting. So, Neil, over to you. Now, you've been at a conference all week in Boston, and when you weren't getting into Trump insult generator arguments with
Matthew Holt.
With Matthew Holt, what were you doing? What were some of the standouts at that conference for you?
Oh! There was other. So actually, that was on the way home. That was at the airport.
Okay.
So it was already done.
So it was a nice
point.
cap off.
It was a nice cap off. Yep. So yes, there was a lot of talk. It was called M-Health and Telehealth World. By the way, cheers.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steph came on in our the Drinking the Heart. So I went and got myself one too when I saw that you had one. So today is actually National Tequila Day, so we're sort of doing the wrong beverage, but it's what I have. So
yeah, it would be probably a little bit more insane if we were doing tequila shots.
Perhaps
we would have to like pick. We would have to pick. We would have to pick a word that would.
I was just suggesting sipping it, not actually doing shots, responsible.
Oh, so you're talking about nice tequila, sipping tequila.
Perhaps, unless we can talk about it for next week, perhaps. Anyway, back to M-Health and Telehealth World. There was some interesting discussion about whether M-Health is still relevant, or at least I created the interesting discussion. I like to think that it was whether M-Health is still relevant, because a lot of people out there, including Mr. Holt, who I just mentioned, thinks that M-Health is a stupid name and it's just one platform for delivering health technology. Some people call it connected health, some people call it wireless health, some people call it digital health, blah, blah, blah. M-Health is just one of those, and it's all eventually going to become part of health. And there's going to be no distinction once a lot of these technologies become ubiquitous. But, a lot of people were saying that health mobile is changing a lot of things in healthcare, so it ought to be looked at as a distinct thing, at least for now, because there are tens of thousands of M-Health apps out there. Some are more well adopted than others. I've heard that some number that I've heard. It was somewhere in there. It was a very low percentage. It may have been 10% or even less of all those health apps had been downloaded a few dozen times each. So most of them are just kind of sitting in the app stores doing nothing.
Yeah, but there's like that. I just think that, I could see from kind of like, well, I've been doing this for years and years, and most of what I do in healthcare is on an app or a mobile device.
Yeah.
So it's all healthcare. But like for most people, that's not necessarily the case, and you still need a way of describing it to, just in day-to-day parlance. It just seems kind of weird to say like, well, this. Mobile health is way too limiting, and it just, I don't know. It just seems like a very theoretical argument, which
Sure.
Which I suppose it's not. There's no reason why you can't have that argument, but it just seems kind of
right.
weird, because I think like there's so many different applications for mobile health, but they're all kind of subtle. You could have a mobile health app, that's true. You could have, and a lot of them, as you say, you get used once or twice and then just sit on the shelf for the most of the time. But then you also have, people looking up patients' records on a tablet. You have patients filling out their check-in documents, or it's not. I mean, they're going to a doctor's appointment, and they fill out their, they might fill out a tablet rather than using paper. But then you also have things like mobile ultrasound devices. You also have like smartphone diagnostics. Like surely that's mobile health.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can feel free to weigh on this one.
No, absolutely. And in fact, in my story, I mentioned the fact that Dr. Eric Topol, when he was on NBC's Rock Center a year and a half ago. If you remember, back when Brian Williams was still on NBC and had credibility, and the same with Dr. Nancy Snyderman was on NBC and still had credibility, he told Nancy Snyderman that he prescribes more apps than drugs. And this, for a cardiologist, that's a pretty big thing, because cardiologists prescribe a ton of drugs. And also I quoted Dr. Shafiq Rob, who was co-chair of the conference. In fact, he's the CIO at Hackensack University Medical Center in New Jersey. He said, mobile put purchasing power in the hands of the patient. And, that's a big thing right there. A real big thing. People can look up costs if the cost information is available as they're waiting, or, as they get to the doctor's office, to see if it's something that, if it's a test that they want to take, or if it's an exam that they think that they ought to go through with, especially those with high deductible plans or anybody else paying out of pocket. So yeah, in that sense, it really has changed a lot of things. It's created a lot of this patient-generated data. Wearables can be considered mobile as well. So yeah, I just was kind of highlighting the fact that there is sort of this tension between people who think that mobile health is a thing and people who think that mobile health isn't a thing. And I also mentioned that there have been a lot of mobile health organizations and conferences and meetings that have gone by the wayside for lack of interest. There was something called the Mobile Health Expo, which spawned something called the Mobile Health Association, which, to my knowledge, only lasted a year or so, and really didn't get much traction at all. The Mobile Health Expo I had attended a couple of times, and the first time I went to it, they first downsized it from, I think it was supposed to be at the Las Vegas Convention Center, down to just a few meeting rooms in a hotel. The year after that, they tried the Jacob Javits Center in New York City, which is a pretty big venue. I mean, it's not as big as some of the mega convention centers in places like Orlando or Las Vegas or Chicago, but it's still pretty big. And it was embarrassingly small, the amount of room that they needed for that. It should have been in a hotel. But so, a lot of this though has morphed into, a lot of this has rolled into the HIMSS conference. HIMSS does put on the mHealth Summit, I believe it's called, every year now, and they expanded
it's November this year, I think.
It's November this year instead of December. I actually have not been to it for the last 3 years, but I believe they expanded it to 4 days instead of 3. So, and I thought at the time that it was a little bit of overkill, but I am going to be going this year. That's in the plans. So we'll see. Check back with me in November about that. So,
Okay.
but a lot of news was made at the conference, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe it felt that way because I didn't see any other actual reporters there, which is kind of good for me, and made our investment in the travel really worth it. Um, Probably the biggest piece of news that I picked up there was from Roy Schoenberg, the CEO of American Well. He spoke. He gave the lunch keynote on Wednesday. He dropped the news that in the next few weeks, he said within the next month, American Well is going to start what he called telehealth exchanges, which will allow patients to search for doctors and either for in-person visits or anybody who in their local area or any doctor who decides to make themselves available at the time would be available for an immediate online consultation. If
But what's
doctors,
the big deal about that? I mean, because and I'm just being a little
mm,
bit devil's
yeah,
advocate, but
the
I mean,
big,
I thought that can't they do that on most? Aren't most telemedicine companies wired like that, or is it like, oh, you have to go through the hospital's website, or you have to go through? It's just it's less intuitive. Is that it? In the current system, the way they've done business before. No, we've lost you, Neil. You need to make sure your microphone is plugged in.
it is
There you go.
on. It
There
is
you go.
on.
I think
No,
it
it
was
is
just a
on.
little bit loose.
Okay. Well, anyways, differentiating, I think, between different specialties, perhaps, that doctors can actually say if they have an open time slot during their workday, they could just go on for 15 minutes and say, hey, I'm available for a dermatology consult or something like that, or primary care. I think that's what they're trying to get at. I'd like that
Okay, so they want to make it more immediate rather than
more
like having to
immediate.
plan with like 24 hours in advance or something like that.
Exactly.
Oh
So
wow, okay.
they
That's
want
kind of
to.
speeding things up a lot more.
Yeah, and he called this part of telehealth 2.0 versus telehealth 1.0, which a lot of it was drug seekers, and he showed a screenshot. He didn't say what company it was. I Googled it, couldn't find it. That were touting themselves as proud to be the champions of Z-Pak. Well, I thought, having had a Z-Pak once for bronchitis, I thought, well, okay, that's not really drug seeking. I really needed it then, but then I actually looked a little further, not knowing how a lot of drugs are used. Apparently, Z-Pak is a common thing for treating STDs. So this, then you start getting into something shady there when doctors are offering easy access to antibiotics for that purpose.
Right, because
So
that should be in the realm of the pharmacist these days.
you would think so, yes. Or it goes
Actually,
to your.
well, pharmacists don't really prescribe. I mean, but I'm recalling a story that one of our colleagues did, Nina Rue, who did a story about how a couple of states have permitted. I don't think it's got into place yet, but it will be active, I think, in California in October and in Oregon in January, unless I've got those two mixed up. But that pharmacists can prescribe birth control. So, yeah, I guess that's going to switch things up a little bit more.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Neil, you also did a really interesting story earlier this week regarding Facebook, and can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. That was also at the mHealth Telehealth World Conference, and that was a keynote from Dr. Joe Kvedar. I think it's Kvedar or Kvedar. I'm not really sure how he pronounces it. I really should ask him the next time, or just pay
Or
attention.
he can just Twitter the world and tell us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, he's the chief of Connected Health at Partners Healthcare in Boston, and there were a lot of people from Boston institutions there, which is to be expected right there in Boston. American Well is based in Boston. I think their office is just 5 minutes away from the hotel where this took place. Uh, Partners is a little bit further away, but Dr. We'll just say
So
Joe.
Facebook,
So
yeah.
yeah, he is running Partners Connected Health. His department is working with the pulmonology department at Mass General and Partners Outpatient Pediatric Asthma Group to try to improve control of asthma among teenagers. So they did a study. They finished the study. They're collecting the data, and they presented some at this conference some preliminary data from it. What they did was set up a private, secret Facebook group um, and there was also linked to a password protected website. They called it Connect to My ACT, and ACT stands for Asthma Control Test, which is kind of a standard survey to measure control of asthma symptoms. And those who were in this Facebook group, who were given reminders from the doctors and from other peers, about 125 teens in the study group, were able to achieve 79% engagement over 12 months. And engagement is defined as taking the survey at least once a month for 12 months. So 79% in that group versus what he said, Dr. Kvedar said, was the typical rate of just 18%. So that's an enormous improvement.
That's fantastic. I mean,
that really is.
Does that more about the prospects for Facebook in taking a more direct, being much more involved in healthcare, as they've said that they want to in the past, and they've acquired a couple of companies in that realm? Or does that say more about the simplicity in just sending people text-based reminders and how effective that can be, rather than getting all interested in a huge sort of bells and whistles platform like a lot of companies have?
I think it's the latter. I think it has to do with the simplicity. It's the idea that people are already on Facebook and they're checking it several times a day, or it could be text messaging. They just decided to create this peer group because it's easy to set up a group on Facebook and make it private and secret. So if you search for the name of the project in Facebook, it doesn't even show up. The website that is related to the project is the home screen. It actually asks for a password, so it's completely private. So they're trying to create a community through a Facebook group, and I think that's maybe where the power came from, where the results came from. And the other thing, they found a mean improvement of almost 1.5 points on the ACT scale. It's a scale of 25, and the mean for participants in this study was 21, and anything about less than 20 indicates problems with asthma control. So if they improved if the average was 21 and the improvement was 1.5 points, they actually put them above the threshold now by using this Facebook reminder system and this peer group. It actually put people into the good range as far as asthma control based on that metric. So yeah, I think it's real simple stuff that's powerful. You might as well take advantage of existing platforms rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. As long as you can make sure that it's secure, and that's the big thing in healthcare is the security. And Facebook could easily get hacked, and I'm sure that their security controls aren't up to par of an EHR system or a clinical trial system. But in this case, I would really have to ask a lawyer about whether this is putting anybody at risk. They are being identified by being part of the group as having asthma. They are being identified by name because that's how fast Facebook works, and they are being identified as partners, patients. So if there's a hack, there possibly could be a problem, I suppose.
Sure. Okay. Well,
text messaging isn't secure either.
That's true.
Or his email.
So what do you think they're going to have to do about that?
Well, I mean, there are secure text platforms, or text note reminders sometimes are sent as a link to a secure site saying, log in for this message. Now, that may be, a limiting step in that you have to take the extra step of clicking the link and then logging in rather than, it's a classic workflow issue, actually, because Facebook is in a lot of people's day-to-day workflows already. People are on it no matter what. So logging into a secure website to control asthma is not in people's daily workflows, even people who have asthma and even severe asthma. Imagine that
Sure.
most of them are, it's an adjustment for them. So.
Sure. Okay, well, we've reached the bottom half of the hour, so we better start to wrap up. Megan, did you have any thoughts about what's coming up next week for you in your beat?
I have a couple stories up my sleeve that I'm not allowed to talk about right now, but yeah.
Well, that sounds intriguing. Can you say what area of your beat they are? Could you say is it more artificial intelligence?
No, I think that this was the week of artificial intelligence. Next week I'm back to your standard life sciences bread and butter. But I think that I'm gonna delve a little further moving forward into artificial intelligence because I do find it very interesting. The applications in the life sciences are pretty broad, so you can look for more writing in that space for me.
Okay, and Neil, what's coming up on your beat next week?
Yeah, the one thing that I've got sort of circled on the calendar, the DoD is supposed to, by the end of July, announce the winner of its $11 billion EHR contract. So the end of July is the end of next week. So, there you go. Although today it's Friday afternoon, and the federal government has a way of releasing very important things late on Friday afternoon. So
you do.
I'll probably do. Yeah.
So you'll be taking a gander at that website around say like 4:30, like 5 o'clock in the next half hour or so.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay.
Although if Cerner, I already know that if Cerner wins, they're not allowed to say anything immediately because they're about to enter their quiet period for their second quarter earnings release, which is August 4th. So that's kind of.
So they're already in the quiet period, you mean? So they have to keep stum.
Yeah. They are in the quiet period. So if they win, they can't really say anything. They're going to have one of their bid partners make the announcement.
Okay.
So.
Well,
I think
it's a good tip.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to just quickly say that one of the interesting things on my beat this past week was that Propeller Health kind of struck a new milestone in the beyond the pill trend.
Speaking of asthma, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. But they had an FDA-approved platform, a sensor-based platform to track adherence, and a remote monitoring platform to track, among other things, adherence for inhalers, specifically for COPD and asthma. Yes. And this week, they got approved for their platform to be used with GlaxoSmithKline's inhaler, as well as it was a dry powder inhaler. I remember that, and as well as Boehringer Ingelheim, with medications associated with their particular inhaler of theirs. So that's a pretty interesting milestone, and it'll be interesting to see what other approvals come up, are coming down the pipeline. So watch the space, because digital health, especially the convergence with the pharmaceutical industry, after a long time of just like it seemed like one pilot after another, this kind of cycle of pilots, it seems like it's beginning to kind of gain some interest, go in some interesting directions with these approvals. It'll be interesting to see how the pharmaceutical companies roll these products out, what kind of reimbursement packages they'll work out with the insurers and the providers. So I guess that's it.
Yeah, and speaking of convergence, we actually just posted the agenda this week for MedCity Converge, our convergence conference. September 1st and 2nd in Philadelphia. I believe all three of us will be there.
Nope, I'll be in India.
Oh, you'll be in India. Okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So most of us will be there. Chris will be there.
Carry on without you.
It's an amazing lineup, It's going to be. I'm pretty.
So check events.medcitynews.com and you can find all the details. Okay,
great. Well, thank you for tuning in for another episode of MedHeads at MedCity News. I've been your moderator, Stephanie Baum. digital health editor at MedCity News as well, and joined by my colleagues Megan Akeshavan and in San Diego and Neil Versell in Chicago. Thanks again. Have a great weekend.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Stop this. Oh, here we go.